Saddam Hussein's journey began in the humble surroundings of a small village near Tikrit. His early life was steeped in poverty, a stark reality that would profoundly shape his worldview and fuel his relentless ambition. The hardships he faced during his formative years instilled in him a deep-seated desire to escape the confines of his impoverished background and rise above his circumstances. His character was further molded by a harsh upbringing and early exposure to the turbulent political landscape of Iraq, a nation grappling with instability and violence. The streets were rife with conflict, and political unrest was a constant presence, creating an environment where survival often depended on cunning and ruthlessness. These experiences left an indelible mark on the young Saddam, hardening his resolve and instilling in him a pragmatic, often brutal approach to achieving his goals. Drawn to the Ba'ath Party, a rising force in Iraqi politics that espoused Arab nationalism and socialist ideals, he quickly became convinced that politics was not a realm of noble ideals or philosophical debates, but rather a ruthless struggle for power, a zero-sum game where only the most cunning and ruthless could prevail. This cynical view of politics would become a defining characteristic of his leadership style, informing his decisions and shaping his interactions with both allies and adversaries. His ascent within the Ba'ath Party was marked by calculated brutality and a willingness to employ any means necessary to achieve his objectives. This included a daring, albeit failed, assassination attempt against then-Prime Minister Abd al-Karim Qasim in 1959, an act that forced him into a period of exile as he fled the country to avoid capture and prosecution. During his time abroad, he immersed himself in the fervent atmosphere of Arab nationalism, a powerful ideology that swept across the Middle East in the 1960s, promising unity and liberation from foreign influence. He eventually returned to Iraq as a key player in the Ba'ath Party, playing a crucial role in the coup of 1968 that brought the party to power. As vice chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council, Saddam wasted no time in consolidating his power, building a vast and pervasive security apparatus that would become the cornerstone of his regime. He strategically placed loyalists in critical positions within the military, intelligence agencies, and government ministries, ensuring that his authority remained unchallenged. Information was tightly controlled, dissent was ruthlessly suppressed, and fear became a potent tool for maintaining order. In 1979, he orchestrated the removal of President Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, forcing him to resign under duress, and paving the way for his own ascent to the presidency. To solidify his grip on power and eliminate any potential rivals, he orchestrated a chilling televised purge of the Ba'ath Party, accusing numerous top officials of treason and conspiracy, subjecting them to swift trials and executions. The televised spectacle was designed to instill fear and obedience, leaving the survivors terrified and compelled to publicly affirm their unwavering loyalty to Saddam Hussein. Saddam's message was unequivocally clear: absolute control was paramount, and any form of dissent would be met with swift and merciless retribution. Iraq was now firmly under the control of a dictator, entering an era defined by his iron grip and unwavering determination to maintain power at any cost. The world now faced a new and undeniably ruthless dictator, a figure who would dominate Iraqi politics and cast a long shadow over the Middle East for decades to come. Saddam's Iraq in the 1980s presented a perplexing paradox, a nation grappling with stark contrasts. Gleaming modern infrastructure rose amidst the timeless traditions of ancient markets and age-old customs. It was a society undergoing rapid transformation yet firmly rooted in its historical identity. Oil wealth gushing from the earth fueled sweeping modernization, a grand vision for Iraq's future. The nation's vast petroleum reserves became the engine of progress, driving ambitious projects and transforming the urban landscape. Roads, a network of arteries connecting the country, facilitated trade and travel, shrinking distances and fostering economic growth. These modern highways symbolized Iraq's ambition to join the ranks of developed nations. Hospitals equipped with advanced technology aimed to provide quality healthcare to all citizens, reflecting a commitment to social welfare and public health. These institutions represented a significant investment in the well-being of the Iraqi people. Schools, centers of learning and intellectual growth, nurtured a new generation of Iraqis, empowering them with knowledge and skills to shape the nation's destiny. Education was seen as a cornerstone of progress, a key to unlocking Iraq's potential, and a celebrated literacy campaign sought to eradicate illiteracy. bringing the power of reading and writing to every corner of the country, empowering individuals and transforming communities. This initiative aimed to create a more informed and engaged citizenry. For a time, Iraq's middle class thrived, enjoying a period of unprecedented prosperity and stability, their lives enriched by new opportunities and a rising standard of living. They were the beneficiaries of Iraq's economic boom, a testament to the nation's progress, and the nation's infrastructure rivaled the regional stage. Baghdad, in particular, transformed into a modern metropolis, a symbol of Iraq's aspirations. But progress masked a brutal reality, a dark undercurrent of delivery so deceptive that permeated every aspect of Iraqi society. Beneath the veneer of modernity lay a system of control and surveillance that stifled dissent and crushed opposition. The Mukhabarat secret police enforced a climate of fear, their presence omnipresent, their methods ruthless, their mission to silence any voice that dared to challenge the regime. They were the eyes and ears of Saddam, ensuring absolute obedience. Dissent meant torture, unspeakable acts of cruelty inflicted upon those who dared to question the status quo, their suffering a sense. The regime's prisons became chambers of horrors, where human dignity was systematically destroyed, or death. The ultimate punishment for those deemed enemies of the state, their lives extinguished without mercy, their fate a chilling warning to others. Executions were carried out with brutal efficiency, a public display of the regime's power. Public executions, spectacles of terror designed to instill fear and obedience in the population, a grim reminder of the regime's absolute authority. These events served as a powerful deterrent, discouraging any form of resistance, and notorious prisons like Abu Ghraib became synonymous with brutality and human rights abuses, their walls echoing with the screams of the innocent, their legacy a stain on Iraq's history. Abu Ghraib was a symbol of the regime's cruelty, a place where hope died, kept the population in check, ensuring that no challenge to Saddam's rule could ever take root. Fear was the regime's most potent weapon, a tool used to control and manipulate the Iraqi people. The regime's cruelty peaked with the Anfal campaign, a systematic and brutal assault on the Kurdish population, a campaign of ethnic cleansing that left a trail of death and destruction in its wake. Against the Kurds, a people who had long sought autonomy and self-determination, their aspirations met with violence and repression. The Kurdish people suffered immensely under Saddam's rule, their culture and identity threatened with extinction. Culminating in the chemical attack on Halabja in 1988, a horrific act of genocide that shocked the world, exposing the depths of Saddam's depravity. The attack on Halabja remains a symbol of the regime's brutality and its willingness to use any means necessary to maintain power. Thousands died, their lives cut short by a weapon of mass destruction, their deaths a testament to the regime's utter disregard for human life. The victims of Halabja became martyrs, their memory forever etched in the annals of history. And the message was unmistakable. Dissent would not be tolerated, and those who dared to challenge the regime would face the full force of its wrath. The destruction of Halabja served as a chilling reminder of the consequences of resistance. Opposition would be crushed without mercy. Any attempt to undermine Saddam's authority met with swift and brutal retribution. The regime's response to any form of dissent was always disproportionate, designed to instill fear and discourage future challenges. Saddam's cult of personality dominated public life, his image plastered on every wall, his name invoked in every speech, his presence inescapable. The cult of personality was a key tool in maintaining Saddam's power, creating an aura of invincibility around him. His image omnipresent, a constant reminder of his power and authority, a symbol of the regime's control over every aspect of Iraqi society. Saddam's portraits and statues served as a form of propaganda, reinforcing his image as the all-powerful leader. Iraqis benefited from state services, enjoying access to healthcare, education, and other social programs, but these benefits came at a price: absolute loyalty to the regime. The state provided for its citizens but demanded unwavering obedience in return, but lived in constant fear of saying the wrong thing, knowing that any perceived act of disloyalty could have dire consequences. The surveillance state created an atmosphere of paranoia, where trust was eroded and fear reigned supreme. The nation was held together by oil money, the lifeblood of the Iraqi economy, funding the regime's ambitious projects and maintaining its grip on power. Oil wealth allowed Saddam to buy loyalty and suppress dissent, ensuring his continued rule. And terror, the ever-present threat of violence and repression that kept the population in line, ensuring their obedience to Saddam's rule. Terror was the regime's ultimate weapon, a tool used to silence opposition and maintain control. Progress and brutality were two sides of the same coin, inextricably linked in Saddam's Iraq. A nation where modernization was achieved through repression and prosperity was built on fear. The duality of Saddam's regime was its defining characteristic, a paradox that shaped the lives of all Iraqis. Saddam's rule was absolute, his power unchecked, his authority unquestioned, his control over Iraq complete. He was the undisputed leader, the supreme commander, the architect of Iraq's destiny. And always enforced by fear, the constant threat of violence and repression ensuring that no one dared to challenge his authority. Fear was the foundation of Saddam's rule, the key to his longevity, the source of his power. In August 1990, Saddam invaded Kuwait, driven by economic woes and territorial claims. He underestimated the world's response. The UN imposed sanctions and a US-led coalition assembled. Operation Desert Storm unleashed overwhelming air power, crippling Iraq's military. The ground war lasted just 100 hours. Kuwait was liberated, and Iraq's army destroyed. Images of devastation like the Highway of Death symbolized Saddam's defeat, yet the coalition stopped short of removing him from power. Saddam's regime survived, but Iraq was left shattered and isolated. The dictator remained, wounded but dangerous. The consequences of this decision would haunt Iraq for years. After the Gulf War, UN sanctions aimed to force Saddam to abandon weapons of mass destruction. Iraq's economy collapsed, the dinar became worthless, and basic goods vanished. Hospitals crumbled, medicines ran out, and child mortality soared. The Oil for Food program offered limited relief, but corruption and mismanagement plagued it. The middle class was decimated, professionals fled, and a black market thrived. Saddam used the suffering as propaganda, blaming the West while tightening his grip. Sanctions failed to topple him, but devastated Iraqi society. Resentment grew, toward both the regime and the outside world. Iraq became brittle, fractured, and desperate. The nation's wounds deepened, setting the stage for future turmoil. After 9/11, the US viewed Saddam's regime as a potential threat, despite no link to the attacks. The Bush administration argued Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and ties to terrorism. Diplomatic efforts failed to convince key allies. The US and UK prepared for war without broad UN support. The case for invasion was built on urgency and fear. Saddam denied having WMDs but continued his defiant posturing. Washington's calculations had changed. Containment was out, preemption was in. The decision for war was made. Troops massed on Iraq's borders and the world braced for conflict. On March 20, 2003, the invasion began with a failed airstrike targeting Saddam. Shock and awe followed. Baghdad was bombarded with relentless precision. The world watched as the city's skyline erupted in fire. Coalition forces advanced rapidly from the south, facing little organized resistance. Years of sanctions had left Iraq's military demoralized and ill-equipped. Many soldiers deserted. Only irregular forces offered pockets of resistance. Within 3 weeks, US troops reached Baghdad's outskirts. The feared urban battle never materialized. The regime's defenses collapsed. Saddam's power structure disintegrated with stunning speed. The symbols of his rule were erased as American tanks entered the capital. Iraq's old order was finished. The end was near, but chaos loomed. April 9, 2003. US Marines, spearheading the coalition forces, finally entered Baghdad's Firdos Square. After weeks of intense fighting and anticipation, the capital city was now within reach. The world watched as the balance of power in Iraq shifted dramatically. The toppling of Saddam's statue, broadcast worldwide to eager audiences, became an instant symbol. It was a carefully orchestrated the end of an era and the dawn of a new, hopefully democratic future for Iraq. For many, the statue's fall symbolized the definitive end of Saddam Hussein's long and oppressive rule, a moment of liberation after decades of fear and control. The images resonated deeply, carrying a message of hope and change. Euphoria, raw and palpable, quickly gave a sense of unease and chaos as the reality of the power vacuum began to sink in. The celebrations were short-lived. The institutions of state crumbled as law and order vanished almost overnight, leaving a void that would soon be filled by violence and uncertainty. Looting swept the city with shocking speed and intensity. The pent-up frustrations and economic hardships of years under Saddam's regime seemed to explode in a wave of opportunistic crime. Government ministries, symbols of authority and control, and private businesses alike were ransacked, their contents plundered in broad daylight. Even hospitals, sanctuaries of healing and care, were not spared. They were ransacked, their vital medical equipment stolen, further crippling an already fragile healthcare system. Adding to the escalating crisis, weapons depots were left unguarded, their arsenals exposed and vulnerable to anyone who dared to approach. This massive influx of readily available weapons would inevitably fuel future violence, empowering insurgents and exacerbating the already precarious security situation. The National Museum, a repository of Iraq's rich and ancient history, was looted, its priceless artifacts stolen or destroyed. This act of cultural vandalism represented a profound loss, a cultural tragedy that robbed Iraq and the world of irreplaceable treasures. In the aftermath, the US-led Coalition Provisional Authority, tasked with rebuilding Iraq, made a series of fateful errors that would have long-lasting consequences. The policy of de-Baathification, intended to remove Saddam's loyalists from power, purged experienced officials from their positions, leaving a critical skills gap in the government. Compounding the problem, the Iraqi army was disbanded entirely, leaving the country without a functioning military force. This decision unleashed hundreds of thousands of armed, unemployed men onto the streets, creating a volatile and dangerous situation. Many of these former soldiers, feeling betrayed and disenfranchised, became potential recruits for the burgeoning insurgency. As the security situation deteriorated, basic services such as electricity and water collapsed, further eroding the quality of life for ordinary Iraqis. Insecurity soared, with bombings, kidnappings, and assassinations becoming commonplace, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. The initial hope of liberation, so vividly displayed in Firdos Square, quickly faded into a grim reality of instability, pervasive violence, and a growing sense of despair. The state, once a symbol of Saddam's iron grip, had effectively ceased to function, leaving a power vacuum that various factions would fight to fill. The fall of Baghdad, initially hailed as a victory, marked not the beginning of peace and stability, but the start of a bloody and protracted new chapter in Iraq's history, one defined by conflict and uncertainty. Iraq was plunged into a complex and brutal insurgency, as various groups motivated by different agendas took up arms against the occupying forces and the new Iraqi government. This insurgency was further complicated by escalating sectarian strife, as long-simmering tensions between Sunni and Shia Muslims erupted into open violence, tearing apart the fabric of Iraqi society. For months after Baghdad's fall, Saddam vanished, taunting his pursuers. His capture came in December 2003, found hiding in a spider hole near Tikrit. The once feared dictator was seized without resistance. His arrest brought celebration, but violence continued. Saddam's trial for crimes against humanity was chaotic. He remained defiant to the end. In November 2006, he was sentenced to death and hanged soon after. The execution, filmed and leaked, deepened sectarian divides. Saddam's end closed a chapter, but Iraq's turmoil persisted. Justice was served, but peace remained elusive. Saddam's execution did not bring peace. Iraq descended into sectarian civil war. Al-Qaeda in Iraq, later ISIS, exploited the chaos, fueling years of violence. A new constitution and elections entrenched ethnic and religious divisions. Weak, corrupt governments struggled to unite the country. The war's aftermath destabilized the region, empowering Iran and spreading conflict. ISIS's rise brought new horrors, forcing another international intervention. The justification for war, WMDs, proved false. The cost was immense. Hundreds of thousands died and Iraq's identity was shattered. The removal of a dictator left the nation struggling for stability and unity. The shadow of Saddam and the war still haunts Iraq and the world,